What's happening? What's happening? What's happening? Welcome back into JC's Pop Culture with me, JC, where you can see all kinds of pop culture content. Could be anything from EA Sports college football news to trailer reactions, or what we have today, another movie review. We're going to get into some spoilers for Drive Away Dolls. Came out in theaters last month, but came out on Peacock this past week. So if you haven't had a chance to watch it like myself, it wasn't, playing in any theaters near me and shit, so I waited for it to come to streaming. It's now on Peacock. Finally got a chance to check this one out. I did a trailer reaction for it. I guess that was back in February or so, I want to say, a couple months ago, so now here on the channel. But nonetheless, the trailer shows, Coleman Domingo, Matt Damon, Pedro Pascal, and then, of course, you get the main stars, Margaret Qualley and Geraldine, whose last name I'm not even going to try and pronounce, but you guys know her. You've seen her in plenty of films, Cock Blockers, The Package, written by the Workaholics guys and shit. So she's been around, especially in comedies like this. So, the thing that I got from the trailer was, oh shit, this is a bit of, star-studded cast. We got Coleman Domingo, we got Matt Damon, we got Pedro Pascal, but once I dive in on the movie, not so much. It's a bit of kind of cameo performances for those bigger names, but Margaret Qualley and Geraldine do a good job of, carrying the film. They're both funny in their own right. So, I think that if you're looking for some comedy, you'll find it here in this movie. However, written by one of the Coen brothers and directed as well by Ethan Coen, I was expecting this to be, I guess, a little bit better. As I'm not saying that this is a bad film by any means. I would say, it's fine. That's how I'll describe it. It's fine. But much the same way I felt about Ricky Snicky, I kind of feel about this one. Didn't laugh nearly as much as I kind of expected to, but there were some good moments of comedy throughout the film. I'll hit on them once we get into the spoiler section and dive in on the plot. But overall, it was shot well. It looked great for the most part. There were some choices with editing and style-wise that I kind of felt a little bit weird. I'll talk more in depth about them when we get into the spoiler part here, into the plots, but just some random kind of transitions and montages that feel super random, and I guess in the end you kind of learn why they're there a little bit. But my main complaint with this movie, and I think probably would be your complaint too, a lot of people anyways, is this movie kind of builds up like a mystery, throughout. You feel like there might be a big payoff. What's going on with this MacGuffin that's carrying things through the film. You've seen the trailer, it's this kind of mystery briefcase, and you're wondering, what's this big payoff? I want to get to the end of the movie and see what this shit is. And for me, the thing is, when you get to it, it is really unsatisfying. I think that's, probably a lot of people's complaints with this film. And I think, if you look at it, you kind of maybe see what they were going for with it, as far as they were hoping to kind of lead you up with this tension and get this big build-up moment, and then hit you, kind of with a surprise that they thought would be comedic, and it would be kind of funny, make you laugh your ass off, and wouldn't upset you. But I think it kind of backfired on them. And so as far as most people don't find it comedic, it's just kind of annoying. And then it makes you kind of feel like pointless for watching this shit in a weird way, I guess. I mean, you got some laughs along the way, but I guess it's really just kind of how you feel about that will kind of determine your feelings overall about this film. For me, the payoff really wasn't there, but I did enjoy some of the buildup, I guess you can say. Some of the choices in the way some of the characters speak, particularly Margaret Qualley, who I liked a lot of her work. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, she was great, and she's good in this movie also in her role in a lot of ways. I like her character. She's a lot of the comedy in the film comes from her and shit, and kind of her, no give a fuck attitude, I guess you could call it, or whatever. But I just don't understand the choice to make her, have this crazy Texan accent. Obviously, you can tell by my voice, I live in West Virginia. I have a little bit of a, country accent myself, but hers seemed like it was turned up to 11, to the point where, I made a note like 10 minutes in the film, it was kind of a little bit too much, I thought. And I don't understand why they wanted to go that way and have her be from Texas and have that heavy of an accent, because I guess, really it was just kind of juxtapose her versus Geraldine's character, the character of Marion, and show how opposite they are. But I think you had enough going on there where you didn't need the accent and shit to add to it. So that's just kind of, I wanted to touch on some of the positives and negatives, of course, like I always do before we get into spoiler territory. So that's just kind of my overall thoughts. You want to stay for my rating, that'll be at the end. But if you haven't seen the film yet, you might want to check out, because we're going to dive in on the plot and dive in on some spoilerific shit now here for Drive Away Dolls. All right, so let's dive in on the plot a little bit here for Drive Away Dolls. Like I said, written and directed by Ethan Coen, also co-written by Tricia Cook. And like I said in the opening there, kind of in summing up my overall thoughts, I wouldn't consider it a bad movie. I wouldn't consider it a good movie. It's pretty much what I consider right down the middle. Maybe that's a little bit of a spoiler for you for what my rating may be at the end of this shit. But there's not all negatives, not all positives, but there's a little bit of both throughout this review. And, if you're looking for comedy, there is a little bit of it in here. But let's dive in on the plot and talk a little about some spoiler shit. So first things first, I didn't realize, I don't think the trailer does a lot to give this away, that the movie takes place in the 90s, 1999 to be exact. We're in Philly, opening at a bar. I thought it was going to be a flashback cut to present day, but no, that's where we are throughout the whole film, taking place in 99. This is where you get Pedro Pascal. The only scene you get him here, the opening of the movie. He's in a restaurant, he's got a briefcase. He's looking like he's going to meet somebody. He's checking his watch. He realizes, oh shit, it's past time. They're not coming. Gets the check from the waiter, and then later the waiter follows him outside. He kind of feels suspicious about it, takes off running. The waiter chases him into an alley and shit. He wants the briefcase, sticks, fucking corkscrew in Pedro Pascal's head. You see another guy come out, pull up in a car, come out with a fucking handsaw. They're about to decapitate Pedro Pascal, and that's kind of the opening to the movie, is this briefcase that's kind of going to be the MacGuffin throughout the whole film here and shit. And so then we get our introduction to our main characters, Jamie and Marion, and, couldn't be more different, and they show that right away with the introductions. Jamie's in bed with a woman, free love, always just kind of doing her own thing, whereas Marion's more, buttoned up, by the book, all that type of shit. Straight lace, think odd couple relationship between these two friends here, right? Marion is shown in an office cubicle talking on the phone, having to do a 9 to 5, whereas Jamie's, with a lady in bed, despite the fact that you find out here in a few she has a girlfriend that calls her on the phone and shit named Suki, who's also played by Beanie Feldstein in this film, another great comedy actress, from shit like Booksmart and stuff like that. She's funny in this movie as well. But so you kind of get the idea right away from the beginning how different these two characters are. And, but one thing that I've thought of from the beginning here, and I guess maybe we're not supposed to pick up on, maybe it's supposed to be a surprise, but for me, it wasn't much of a surprise. So that's something that kind of took away from it for me as well, as if this is supposed to be, kind of one of those movies, will they or won't they? From the beginning, it's like, oh, okay, these two are, opposites attract. They're probably going to end up at, together at the end. So I guess that was telegraphed a little bit. Maybe it was intentional, maybe it wasn't, but I think you can definitely, pick up on that right here from, almost the very beginning of this movie and shit. And then from there, we kind of get into what's going to drive the plot here. Jamie's talking about having Marion help her move her shit out of Suki's because, she caught her sleeping with that other girl and everything. And Marion says she's about to go to Tallahassee to go, birding and, see some family and shit. And Jamie said she's about to do a drive away, which, if you don't know what drive away, it's like you take a car, transport it for someone or whatever. There's a place in their town called Curly's Drive Away they're going to go to do that shit. So, they decide, let's do two birds with one stone. Let's take a trip together. We'll go to Tallahassee. We'll do my drive away, all that shit. So they go to Curly's, and, right as they're arriving, Curly's on the phone, and he's talking to, the guy we saw in the beginning of the movie getting the briefcase and shit. And lo and behold, where do you think they want to take the briefcase to on a drive away? Tallahassee, and they say some people are going to be there to pick it up. They're going to be heading to Tallahassee. Gets off the phone. Who shows up? Jamie and Marion, obviously heading to Tallahassee. He thinks to give, them the car with the shit in it. So gives it to the girls. Obviously, that's how they get tied into the plot, heading down to Tallahassee. Now they're going to be followed, by the group of guys that want what's in the trunk, what's in the briefcase. That's kind of the first half of this movie. It's really, big build up. Like I said, you don't know what's in there. You feel like, oh, this has got to be drugs or money or something crazy. Obviously, you find out Pedro Pascal's head's in there. But like I said, you won't find out what's in that briefcase till the third act. And I think, if you find it funny what's in there, maybe you'll like this movie a little bit more than I did. But for me, it just felt really anticlimactic, so I don't know. But that's just my opinion. Then moving on here in the plot, we kind of further get into, the difference in the relationships of these two characters, or how they function in their fucking lives or whatever, I guess you could say. Because, we've seen Jamie having sex with multiple people. She's always talking about fucking, bringing girls home, shit like that. And then on the trip, we find out Marion, she had, a serious girlfriend, Donna, and she hasn't had sex since her. So over like 3 years. So Jamie's got a goal to try and get Marion laid. So that's kind of what goes on here for a little bit throughout this first part of the film, as she's trying to, play wingman to her. She gets pissed about it, goes back to the hotel, and, Jamie, stays out, brings back a girl back to the hotel. So then Marion, goes back to the hotel lobby to read a book while Jamie sleeps with this girl and shit. And then this is when, things start to pick up plot-wise. But it's also where shit gets a little bit weird, because then as she's sitting here in the hotel lobby, that's when we get this shot. The camera's, showing the car zooming into the trunk where we know the briefcase is. And then all of a sudden we just get this random fucking visual sequence, like, acid trip fucking montage or whatever. And I'm like, well, this seems fucking random. Maybe this is just trying to imply to us that there's drugs in the briefcase. I don't know. It was probably the only time we'll get there. Maybe they just needed to fill a couple minutes there, use it as a transition, whatever. Don't think anything of it. But it's not the first time this shit will happen. And like I said, at the end, maybe it has a little bit of payoff. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know. It definitely gets kind of explained away or tried to be explained away, but it's just a fucking weird sequence, thrown in there. Especially, it's really jarring watching the movie and shit when it comes up the first time. So I definitely, had to write that down in my notes. But moving on, we flash forward, later in their trip, they're at another bar. There's a girls' soccer team there, and Jamie's like, all right, we're gonna hang out with them, go back with them. And when they do, they're doing like this fucking kissing game where one of the soccer players blows a whistle and everybody has to rotate right and shit, kiss the next person. And then so of course it comes around to where it's Jamie and Marion and they got to kiss. Marion's like, no, we can't, we're friends and shit. Everybody just laughs. They end up kissing, and that's like the first time, and boom, this is kind of the kickstart where you see, fireworks. Okay, this is going to be the start of something. It's going to be awkward for a while. Then you kind of get into the will they or won't they. And of course, it goes where you probably expect it to and shit, right? But nonetheless, that's kind of what starts that, romantic shit between our two main characters here, Jamie and Marion. And so as they're proceeding on their trip, obviously they're being followed by, Coleman Domingo's lackeys looking for, the briefcase as well. They got their shit. They've beat up Curly back at, Curly's driveway. And so now they're, trying to find, trace them down. They find Suki. They show up at her apartment. It's two guys and she fucks one of them up, man. This guy just gets his ass beat the whole movie, especially here by Suki. Though, like, she's pepper spraying him. She's choking him. The other guy's just talking to her. And so eventually, he gets the info because she's pissed at Jamie anyway. So she gives him a picture, writes a message on it for her and everything. And then one of the funnier scenes is, the guy that she's beat up, her little dog comes in and starts humping him in the ass and shit. So, that's just one of the comedic moments. Like I said, there are some good moments of comedy throughout this film. Don't get me wrong. If you're looking for laughs, you'll find a few throughout here. And then from there, I mentioned the weird transitions with some of the visual, trippy sequences that we get, but then we get a weird edit here. I don't know if it's on purpose just to show time has passed and shit or what, because, the last place we see Jamie and Marion's is they're kissing in that soccer party. We get this scene, and then the next edit we show is just Marion walking by herself, don't know where she's coming from or where she's heading to. You figure it's maybe from that party, but then you cut and you see Jamie's back in the hotel. So it's a weird edit right there, but nonetheless, she gets followed by a cop. He doesn't like her tone. She gets put in jail. You see her alone in the jail bed. You see, Marion doesn't bring somebody home that night. She sleeps by her. I mean, not Marion, but Jamie sleeps by herself as well. And you see they're kind of longing for each other. Next day, Jamie picks Marion up and they proceed, finally get into Florida. But once they cross the Florida line, of course, tire blows. So guess what? They got to go in the fucking trunk and look for a jack. And that's when, obviously, they first find Pedro Pascal's head in the box because they pick up on a bad smell. And they're like, what the fuck? Said this is cold. It's his head on ice in a fucking box. So then they see the briefcase. They decide to open it. They go into a restaurant to open it. But speaking of the trippy visuals, we get another one here. Like I said, the random interstitched, almost used as transitions. But this one, you see Miley Cyrus pop up. And I'm just like, what the fuck? Why is Miley Cyrus popping up in this random trippy visual that I've already had a problem with? Thought it was going to happen once, and now it's just multiple times taking me out of this shit. So, it's not explained yet, but the next one, there would be one more. She's in it again. It kind of explains it a little bit, or at least tries to. But nonetheless, continuing on, they open the briefcase, and immediately Marion's just disgusted. She wants no part of whatever's in it and shit. And we don't know what's in it at this point still yet. All we know is, well, damn, must be something bad, right? But the next scene we get is also one that just made me laugh because it was a bit of, I guess, irony or something that was unexpected. And that's, Jamie calls Suki, the ex from the beginning, on the phone, and you find out she's a fucking police officer. She's, working in a jail, and she's trying to put her onto this murder plot because they found a head in a box and shit. Tells her to go to Curly's driveway because there's some shit going on. She doesn't believe her, but she does end up going there and checking. Of course, Curly's on the ground knocked out, but she doesn't see him. She's shining her flashlight and shit, but he's down on the ground where she can't see him, so she never notices, thinks she lied and just kind of leaves. And so at that point, nothing really comes of it with Suki yet until she would meet up back with them later in the movie. She becomes a part here right towards the end, which we're pretty much into now. We get to seeing, them deciding to finally have sex with each other, Jamie and Marion. So Jamie goes down on Marion, but Marion then, falls asleep afterward, doesn't go down on Jamie. So when she wakes back up, she sees Jamie touching herself, and she's like, no. And I'm like, what the fuck? That's kind of weird. But she runs over to the briefcase, and then you see inside the briefcase, it's opened up, and we finally get the reveal, and this is where this movie's going to turn, I think, for you one way or the other, because you've had this long build up, you've had this kind of mystery thriller angle mixed in with this, comedy, and so you're like, oh shit, here's the big reveal. It's a bunch of money, it's a bunch of drugs, what the fuck is it? And you realize It's like 5 dildos. And so, I mean, is it ironic? Is it a little bit of comedy? Maybe, but I guess if you're laughing your ass off at that, you may love that. But for me, I was like, really? That's kind of the build up and the payoff of this movie. And it just kind of was a letdown to me, even though, you do giggle a little bit because it's just so unexpected, which is probably what they were going for and shit. But of course, nonetheless, the goons bust in then as well. They steal the briefcase, not realizing that they're missing the one dildo that they really need. You get one more of those trippy visual flashbacks right here. You show Miley Cyrus again, hippie girl, and you show her with a guy, and she's making a mold, you see, using the dildo. And so you come to find out what's the big twist. These guys are working for the senator character played by Matt Damon, who you saw in the trailer. He's in this movie for about 30 seconds, 60 seconds here at the end of the film, but you find out that it was him back when he was college. They say he smoked weed one time. Hippie chick made a cast of his dick, and he can't have it out, his dick be a commodity and shit. So the whole thing is to get this senator's cock mold back is kind of the plot of the movie. So like I said, it's pretty much nonsensical when you get here to the end. So if you're satisfied by that, if it makes you laugh enough, maybe you'll feel better about this movie than I did. But for me, it just kind of knocked it down a peg right here in this third act. But nonetheless, the guys, they got the briefcase, they take the girls. Once they get back there, like I said, they realize they're missing the most important one. The one lackey that's been beat up the whole movie that I was talking about, Suki kicking his ass and shit, finally snaps, shoots both Coleman Domingo and the other lackey, and then goes to shoot the girls, doesn't have any bullets, freaks out, leaves the scene. So the girls free themselves. They go back to the hotel to find, the senator's dildo. They do find it. They decide to extort him. Jamie calls them. They want $1 million for it. Agrees to meet him. Meets him at a bar. This is the scene where you see Matt Damon in the trailer, with the briefcase and shit. They meet him there. They get their $1 million. You think plot's over. Suki shows up, bringing Jamie, her dog, back there at the same bar. All three of these characters talking outside the bar. Then you see, Senator put on a ski mask. He's approaching them from behind with a gun. He's about to assassinate them, of course, retrieve the money and shit. All of a sudden, you see Suki reach into the dog cage. She pulls out a gun, shoots him. Hit the senator, drops the box with Pedro Pascal's head in it. It rolls out. He's exposed. So you get your happy ending. Jamie and Marion end up together, kind of ride off into the sunset. Credits on this comedy thriller and shit, which is fucking, very wild. A lot of unexpected shit throughout, I guess, in my opinion, because, I knew it was a comedy, but I guess I wasn't thinking it was going to be that much where the payoff was strictly, just a comedic element and shit. And me, I'm all for rated R comedy, so I'm not going to sit here and hate on this thing all the time by any means. Same thing I said about Ricky Stenicki. I'm grateful for any, comedies that we get nowadays that are so few and far between. So I appreciate the laughs that this movie provided, but just some of the little things that, the payoffs, I don't know. Like I said, the trippy visuals felt weird. I don't know if it was supposed to be a mislead, so you thought it was drugs, but it really took you out of the movie. And I don't think the payoff was there with, having Miley Cyrus in this cameo to be this hippie girl that was with the senator way back when, that you only get explained through exposition by Coleman Domingo. So really, did the visuals even, explain the shit for you or provide anything other than, for some filler and shit? So all in all, I did get some good laughs from it, but I had too many problems to necessarily say it's really good or above average. I think it's just below where I put Ricky Stenicki. So I gave Ricky Stenicki a 5.5 earlier this year. So ultimately, my final score here for Drive Away Dolls is going to come down to a 5.0 for this movie. But if you enjoyed comedies, go ahead, check it out. You'll probably get some laughs throughout this one, and it's a good enough time if you're a big fan of, rated R crude comedies and shit. I think you'll get some enjoyment out of this one. But that's my thoughts here on Drive Away Dolls. Would love to hear yours. If you had a chance to check out this film, drop them in the comments there below. Really appreciate those interactions. They help grow the channel a shit ton, as does just hitting that like button. If you made it this far in the video, give me a thumbs up. Really helps a shit ton with the YouTube algorithm. If you're into comedy films like this, superhero films, horror films, or even the EA Sports College Football video game, I'm talking about all those a ton here on JC's Pop Culture. So if they're up your alley, hop along for the ride here by hitting the subscribe button. Appreciate you guys tuning into this one, and I'll catch you on the next one.